She never sent an email, and I like for Mrs. Patrice to produce these emails that she's saying that she sent to me, asking me to call an airline to provide an address, because that is totally not true. And Mrs. Patrice, shame on you. She never showed up. She never confirmed. I had to call the police to try to get the kids from her. And then she actually ignored the police officer. We went to go confront her. She just pulled off away from the police as well.
The record, this matter is before the court, and the defendant father's motion for alleging a parenting time violation, seeking costs and attorney fees. This hearing is being conducted via Zoom. Present is attorney Temptee Churchill, representing the defendant petitioner, John McCarter. Mr. McCarter is present. In addition, attorney Marisa Gorski is present with the plaintiff mother, Catherine McCarter. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Court also notes that there is Mr. Churchill filed an objection to a friend. The court recommended order to be scheduled to be heard on July 10th at 10:30. I'm not sure if that's before this court or the referee, but it's noted on the court's docket regarding I believe it's recommendation that recommend issuance of a bench warrant due to outstanding child support arrearages. Can that issue be addressed today as well, so we don't have to come back?
Your Honor, it appears we may have to come back anyway, because they're requesting a evidentiary hearing on my motion. And if that's the case, I would move to consolidate the other matter with whatever date we come back, so we're not coming back twice.
Well, just leave that on July 10th then. The parties can deal with that. I mean, I think it's just a matter of Mr. McCarter meeting with the front of the court, addressing some of those rearages and asking that the bench warrant not issue, because apparently I know there's some snafu with him appearing on Zoom. The parties have met with Ms. Patrick this morning. Ms. Patrick, do you have a recommendation for the court this morning?
I do, Your Honor. I'm in the process of uploading, but I can read it to the court. The recommendation this morning is as follows: motion for parenting time violation be dismissed. That's the extent of the recommendation, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, so Mr. Churchill, the allegation was about the Thanksgiving 2023. Apparently, father made arrangements to go to California for parenting time with the children, and that did not occur. That's the primary basis of your motion. Is that correct?
That and the Christmas, he was deprived of any time at Christmas. The judgment basically guaranteed him 1 week at Christmas every year, and the modified parenting time order continued that, and he got no parenting time at Christmas this year.
Okay. Let's say it's one holiday at a time. Let's try to get to this. Let's deal with, first of all, the Thanksgiving of 2023, then we'll move on to Christmas 2023. Thanksgiving 2023, that was obviously mother's holiday, correct? Because dad has Thanksgiving on even years. Okay, but your position is that mother had agreed to arrangements. Mr. McCarter expended funds unnecessarily, and then the last minute was denied. Is that your position?
That is correct, Your Honor.
Well, maybe needs to get that in writing. Reach out to you and get a court order addressing that before he incurs those expenses. It was mother's holiday. Obviously, that's mean spirited. If mom's lead them along and then all of a sudden pulls out the rug out from underneath them, that's mean spirited. But again, to what extent is a violation of a court order, Mr. Churchill?
Well, they made alternate arrangements that she basically reneged on after he paid everything he was supposed to, and made arrangements, and the kids had called and confirmed through emails with their dad, hey, this is great, they're coming for Thanksgiving, and it didn't happen.
Understood. I read all the pleadings, and again, as I said, it's mean-spirited, wrong for mom to pull out a rug off from underneath them, but how can the court find it to be a violation of a court order?
Well, they made an agreement that deviated from that. They didn't put it in writing. There's emails going back and forth on this, but it's only part of what's going on here. Then at Christmas time,
okay.
Nothing.
So let's say Mrs. Gorski, what's the response to the Thanksgiving? Then we'll move on to Christmas. Again, obviously, sounds like Miss McCarter pulled the rug off from underneath them. Let them to believe it's okay. Come out. I'm going to be busy Thanksgiving. Ms. McCarter incurred all these expenses unnecessarily. Why did she What's her response to all that?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. And I apologize that I didn't file a response. I got Mr. Churchill's motion on Friday, realized it was in Friday's mail yesterday, reached out to my client and said, you have to be in court tomorrow. I don't know how Mr. Churchill got a date so quickly. I know how busy your docket is, but the envelope that it was sent in was stamped June 5th. So that's why you don't have a response from me, with attached exhibits showing that Mr. Churchill's allegations are categorically false. And as you know, Ms. Patrick is the parenting time coordinator on this case, and she knows the truth, which is, I think, the reason that she made the recommendation that she did. We would call my client's father as a witness. Mr. McCarter, you're right. It was her holiday, and my client still cooperated when Mr. McCarter came out to California, and he still had access to the children at Thanksgiving. He didn't show up when he was supposed to. He communicates through Gabe, which is also a violation of this court's order. There's an order from last year that says he has to give 7 days notice. He doesn't do that either. But regardless, she made the children available, and he didn't show up when he was supposed to. And if we have an evidentiary hearing, that's exactly what the evidence will show. That's my response.
The court forgot that Ms. Patrick agreed to act as a parenting time coordinator. So, Mr. McCarter, did he address any of this through Ms. Patrick?
There's email.
The parties did communicate about Thanksgiving through Ms. Patrick, Your Honor. Yes, they did.
So is that correct, Ms. Patrick? So you were involved in the discussions regarding this Thanksgiving?
I am in possession of an email thread that started on November 18th by Catherine, who said that she thought she might be in Michigan for a family funeral. She might bring boys with her. She wanted to let John know that. And so I forwarded that to Mr. McCarter. I did not receive a response from Mr. McCarter. Well, then Catherine let me know that she decided not to take the boys with her, and that Mr. McCarter had been reaching out to the boys about getting them next weekend. Mr. McCarter did not contact me. Let's see.
That seems to be the issue, Mr. Churchill. Mr. McCarter needs to work through Ms. Patrick. Again, and the court does not see, the court's not convinced there's a violation of a court order. That's there's communication between the parties. If they communicate through Ms. Patrick, we can minimize that miscommunication.
I did communicate, Your Honor. I did communicate to Ms. Patrick, and I did let her know that I was coming to get the boys. Me and my wife communicated both back and forth through the court, so I'm not for sure how Mrs. Patrick sitting here saying that we never communicated. We came to an agreement on what day I was supposed to pick up the boys. When I went there to pick up the boys, she did not open the door and she did not release them to me. The same thing that's been going on since Christmas, all the way up until this point, where now it's getting to the point where I have to get the police just in order to pick up the boys. This is totally inaccurate.
Your Honor, would you like me to respond?
Please, Ms. Patrick.
So I have an email on the same chain, November 22nd, that said that Mr. McCarter was contacting the boys and that they had worked out a schedule. The only email I got from John was on November 22nd saying, I gave my itineraries to what date and what time I plan on picking up the kids. So,
yes,
but that information was not given to me, Your Honor. He goes through the children. I found out because Catherine told me that's what the boys told her. And then on November 23rd, I got several emails from Catherine saying, is John coming? The boys haven't heard from him. I didn't know to get the boys ready. At 4:25 p.m. on the 23rd, she emailed me and said that John has not shown up so far. Then on November 25th at 1:17 p.m., she emailed and said, I'm okay with John picking up the boys and bringing them back Sunday. He seems to want a written confirmation, as he said he would come last night and didn't. I only received one response from Mr. McCarter, and that was that he had already given his itinerary and schedule, and I would assume that he gave it to the boys. And I would also like to say, Your Honor, I have never communicated with his wife, nor have I gotten emails from his wife.
Your Honor, I would know.
Okay, well, let me,
Mr.
if
McCarter.
Mr. McCarter, Ms. Gorski.
Judge, your order of March 14th, 2023 says, father shall not arrange parenting time through the minor children. And he continues to do that. My
Okay,
client
can
reaches
you,
out to Ms. Patrick and tries to work cooperatively. Mr. Carter will not.
that is not true. Show me, just because Catherine comes in and says these allegations, show me proof that I've actually contacted with the boys, because I have not done that. She's making these false allegations. I have not. I sat back and waited for Catherine to respond back to me on what time we're supposed to pick up the boys. There is no email saying that she's going to show up with the boys. I would not go out there and spend all this money to sit there and wait for my boys in California when I could be at work, just to sit there and say I'm communicating with the boys, or I'm not coming to pick them up. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So stop with the lies. It's very clear that she did not respond back to me at the time I was supposed to pick up the boys. She did not answer the door when I went there at all. She did not even bother to send an email to let me know that she was not going to show up at all.
Well, from now on, Mr. McCarter, you have a parenting time coordinator. Ms. Patrick has agreed to act in that capacity. You need to go through Ms. Patrick. Don't communicate or email Ms. McCarter. If you want parenting time at a time that's not permitted by court order, you make those arrangements through Ms. Patrick. So there's no miscommunication. Absolutely. Obviously, there was a miscommunication. Ms. McCarter says that she was agreeable to it. You didn't show up on the time that
I did, Your Honor.
Agreed. I don't know what the last communication was, but the court does not find there's violation of any court order, and you need to communicate through Ms. Patrick. So let's move on to Christmas, Mr. Churchill.
I did.
Who had Christmas 2023?
He always has a week at
here.
Christmas. It's in the judgment, and the last amended order, he gets 1 week at Christmas. Last year, he got no time at Christmas.
Okay, and that was to be in
You're right,
California,
Judge,
is that correct?
Pardon, Your Honor, I couldn't hear some.
That was to be in the state of California, correct, the Christmas?
Well, it could be wherever they wanted it based on arrangements and agreements. The judgment originally said in California, but the modified order gave him a week of Christmas regardless and relied on the provision in the judgment.
Okay, and Mr. McCarter was required to give 7 days notice for his Christmas break week. Did he provide that?
I think it's 3 days notice under the amended order.
I'm looking at an order that was entered on November 7th, 2023. It said defendant shall give 7 days notice for his Christmas break week.
Okay.
The last order by this court. Ms. Patrick, was there communication through you regarding the Christmas week that Mr. McCarter wanted?
There is, Your Honor. And Catherine started on December 6th with a proposal of having the boys travel to Michigan for the Christmas break. She gave Friday, December 29th to January 5th. Mr. McCarter responded on December 18th that he would like to see the boys on the 29th of December, but he was going to be unable to keep them until the 5th. And they'd have to fly back out on the 2nd. And then we have more emails that started on December 20th, stating that mom was not going to be able to accommodate that schedule, but however, she could probably have a friend keep them until the 5th when she would have them fly back based on the cost of the airline tickets. So then he responded on the 20th that that was fine with him. And that if they were going to stay a little bit longer, that he would like to visit them during that period. Then we had another one on the 21st. Says that she had made arrangements for them to spend time with their grandmother. So sounds like she wasn't sure she was going to be able to accommodate that. Then on December 22nd, we have Catherine saying she's trying to book the flights, that Mr. McCarter needed to contact Delta Airline and give him his driver's license and the address on his driver's license so that the boys could be registered as unaccompanied minors. Then on the 27th of December, Catherine contacted me saying she still did not have an address from John. And they had not made the arrangements with Delta. On the 28th, John responded that you need to provide You need to provide a date and time as to when my boys will be coming into town before I go and book anything. He then gave me an address of a hotel in Farmington Hills on December 28th. On December 28th at 5:14 p.m., I received an email from Catherine saying the boys are not flying back to Michigan because Mr. McCarter refused to provide the basic information needed to book the boys' flights as minors.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Communication, Your Honor.
The airline requires the address of Mr. McCarter's identification so that they can verify that he is authorized to retrieve them from the airport. He cannot provide a hotel address. The airline will not allow the children to fly to somebody who provides an address of a hotel. They need to know the address on his ID. And he plays this game. In fact, today, he has the children and he's supposed to be at that hotel in Farmington Hills. But when we asked him this morning where the children were, because we were worried they were in his back seat, he said they're at a hotel in Southfield. It's like a shell game. He just moves everything around. So they weren't able to fly. Couldn't book the tickets because she didn't have an address.
Right. How does the Delta know whether or not it's a residential or a hotel address? How would they know that?
They asked for his driver's license. She has to provide the address when she books the flight, and then they look at his license to confirm. So he gave her a hotel address. Unless he's living at that hotel and it's on his driver's license, it's not going to work.
Okay, that's not what you asked for me to call.
I'm sorry, hold on just a minute. How did the children get here if Mr. McCarter was unable to provide a driver's license with a residential address?
They didn't come. She couldn't book the
Oh,
flight.
I thought you said the children were in Southfield today.
Oh, they're here right now. Yes. And they are with
How did
Mr.
they get
McCarter
here?
right now.
How did they get here if Mr. McCarter didn't provide a license?
They flew with their mom. They flew with me.
Okay, understood. All right, any response to let Mr. Churchill, Officer Mr. McCarter's guy needs to accept some responsibility, significant responsibility for these snafus, which is most unfortunate.
Your Honor, that is not what they asked me for. She asked me for an address.
Mr. Churchill, is there anything further?
Your Honor, I think there's more to it than that.
That's not it.
21st, she's making arrangements for them to be with her mom during the holidays when everything broke down during the holidays. She had no business making other arrangements during the holiday other than to try to facilitate his parenting time.
I would agree. Ms. McCarter, this is for dad, not your parents. This is between the parents. But again, obviously, the bottom line was Mr. McCarter didn't provide a copy of his driver license with his address. That's
Your Honor. That's they never.
But the court would agree. Ms. McCarter should not be interfering in scheduling time for her parents. This is not for parents. This is for dad. But the court does not find there to be any parent time violation. So the court's going to adopt Mr. Patrick's recommendation.
Your Honor, they never
denied this time.
Your Honor, they never asked me for an address to provide to the airline. So this is a bunch of hogwash. They asked me where was I going to be keeping the boys at. They never told me to call a airline. She never provided an airline number. She never sent an email. And I like for Mrs. Patrice to produce these emails that she's saying that she sent to me, asking me to call an airline to provide an address, because that is totally not true.
I forward all emails from Ms. McCarter to Mr. McCarter. I have those emails and I can produce them anytime the court would like to see.
And you asked me to call an airline and provide them with an address, is what you're telling me right now.
If you could also copy Mr. Churchill with those emails, Ms. Patrick.
Yes, Your Honor.
They asked me where was I going to be staying at. They asked me for an address. I sent them over the address of where we're going to be staying at. They never asked me for an address or send over an identification or picture ID of my identification, or told me what airline they're coming in on and for what, and sent the number, any information for me to call this airline to provide anything. This is a bunch of hogwash. And Mrs. Patrice, shame on you.
A week at Christmas, it's in the judgment every year. You'd think she would do what she could to facilitate that instead of.
She did. She did.
Wow. And even when the kids got in town yesterday, he had to go through the police to get them.
He did not.
I did. Yes, I did.
Go to the police, but he didn't have to.
Yes, I
You
did,
didn't
because
have
you
to go
never.
to the
Yes,
police.
I asked for the kids on the 7th. You sat there and dropped the kids off at the house, at their friend's house. They spent the night over there, and I called the police because you wouldn't give them to me on the 7th. You never responded me to confirm with me on the day on the 8th to pick the kids up at 8 o'clock, nor did you provide an address. These are the tactics that she's continuing to play every time I go to pick up the kids, just like you did it during Christmas time, which is a complete lie. I'm not spending money to go way out to California just to have her tell me that I didn't show up, which is a lie. I showed up during Christmas to pick up my kids. She never answered the phone. Just like now, when I came to go get the kids on the 7th, she never showed up. She never confirmed. I had to call the police to try to get the kids from her. And then she actually ignored the police officer. We went to go confront her. She just pulled off away from the police as well and told the kids that she's going to Canton, Michigan. I went over to try to hunt her uncle's house down through the kids to find out where they were at. They said they were going to Canton. They never showed up there. She took them to the Sky Zone, stayed there with them all day long. And then finally her uncle had to call her twice on the phone to get her to bring the kids over to the house.
How long are the children here in Michigan, Ms. Gorski?
8 days, until when? Friday?
We leave Friday morning.
They're with their father right now. Mr. McCarter, where are you staying with the boys right now?
26060 Northwestern Highway. And the reason why I'm staying here is because she never confirmed my booking on the 8th to pick up the kids. So therefore I had to cancel my reservations at my last hotel. I had to give those up because she never confirmed me picking up the boys, or never even provided an address for me to get the kids. These are the shenanigans that she's constantly doing. She actually went in there. Remember, Judge, she actually told the counselor at the social worker that there was no bond between me and the kids. The social worker came back a complete lie and said that's not true. These are the tactics that Catherine is going to continue to lie, the same way she lied to the FBI, that these things are not true, and they are true. I'm not getting the police involved to pick up my boys or to try to hunt them down. I should not have to do that through Monroe and all the way to Canton just to get my boys when she knows that she's supposed to turn them over to me. When she's here in Michigan.
The boys are here until Friday.
You're going through a lot of history here. I don't think the judge needs to know all that, but I would only
The boys are here till Friday?
Remember,
Yes.
2 years ago.
Yes.
They were in Michigan.
What about
She never let
the
them
boys
see
staying a
them.
little bit longer? I mean, obviously, mother could be a little more cooperative on all this and working with dad a little more on this parenting time. Why can't the boys stay a little bit longer?
So let me explain what's actually going on right now. So the boys wanted to come back to Michigan to visit their grandmother, their father, their friends.
Right,
And
they can do that in
because I
their
think
time.
that-
This is dad's parenting time, and Mr. McCarter, so the court doesn't want to hear that. Mr. McCarter, what's your schedule? Do you want us to see the boys a little bit longer?
Right, so he's gonna pay for half the flights
Well,
then.
I don't know.
Well, I can't. Well, I can't, Your Honor, because I was not able to make arrangements because she does not respond back after she makes appointments.
Right, so
No, I
you're
cannot.
not able to work with your work schedule to spend any additional days with the boys. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Your Honor.
All right, okay, again, the court will adopt Ms. Patrick's recommendation. The court does not find to be any violation of the parenting, any order of this court. But the court would say, shame on you, Mom, for not working more with Dad. Mr. McCarter, shame on you for not communicating effectively with Ms. Patrick. And you worked with
Your
Ms.
Honor.
Patrick. So with that, the court will conclude this hearing, and you can all zoom out.
Thank you.
This is a bunch of bullshit.
That's noted for the record, Mr. McCarter. Well, remember that next time you don't use this language in this court. So, Mr.
Well,
McCarter,
because it is,
you may
because
take long before you come back for the court. Please zoom out to Mr. McCarter, please. Silence him. Thank you, Ms. Patrick.
Your Honor, and I know the court knows, Mr. McCarter is very abusive when.
My client has discovered some concerning messages that were under deleted messages, and they were between the minor child Kinsey and plaintiff, and essentially they were aimed at coaching the child to behave a certain way, with the defendant to not participate in activities when she is with a defendant